Hey you! Yes you! Have you perhaps seen that one news story about a man claiming there was a mouse in his Mountain Dew, only for the claim to be disproved because the rat would get dissolved in it? When you saw that, did you wonder what events had to be made for the world to reach this point? What things had to happen for a soda that tastes like radioactive gummy worms to have an entire Greek pantheon worth of flavors? If you ask that question, I have a video for you. I have spent hours of downtime researching and chronicling the Mountain Dew lore. They classified into 4 different time periods to make it seem a lot more interesting and mystical than it really is. The Monolithic period, the Revolutionary period, the Degradation period, and the Renaissance period. Now, to start our tour through the unnecessarily complicated history of Mountain Dew, we must go back to the dawn of the Dew itself, at the beginning of the Monolithic period, around 82 years ago at the time of this video's release. The Monolithic period is the oldest and longest period of Mountain Dew history, characterized by the lack of other flavors in the Mountain Dew line that lasted over a year and weren't only sold overseas, beginning in the year 1940. In the early 40s, most soft drinks were made and bottled by local companies. If you bought a soda back then, it was probably made a couple of towns away from you maximum. One such company, Hartman Beverage, was owned by 2 brothers named Barney and Allie Hartman. These two had an issue finding the right soda to be mixed with their whiskey and decided to cut out the middleman and make a citrus-flavored soda, which they named Mountain Dew. The name was borrowed from Tennessee slang for moonshine. This peculiar soda also contained lithium, but it was the 40s and everyone was jacked up on enough cocaine to kill an elephant, so no one really cared. Around the end of the 40s, Barney Hartman died. Allie was the only person left with the Mountain Dew copyright as Tri-County Beverage, and more importantly, Pepsi themselves began bottling Mountain Dew. At the end of the 50s, Allie Hartman became the co-owner of the Tip Corporation and sold the Mountain Dew name to it, connecting Bill Jones, another co-owner of the Tip Corporation, Bill Bridgeforth, manager of Tri-City Beverage, and the Mountain Dew name together. The 2 people developed a drink called Tri-City Lemonade and combined it with Mountain Dew to create the formula that has been used ever since. If you drink a normal Mountain Dew now, you're drinking their recipe. Near the beginning of Pepsi's reign over the soda, they changed the bottling to be more funny with the phrase, "It'll tickle your innards." They gave up after only 5 years and changed the design. Around the late 70s to the beginning of the 90s, Mountain Dew began experimenting with other flavors and versions of Mountain Dew. I know this sounds like it doesn't fit with the Monolithic period's theme, but trust me, none of these experiments ever amounted to anything. They were all either super basic stuff like Mountain Dew with the sugar taken out of it, flavors that died before they were only a year old like with Mountain Dew Red, not to be confused with Code Red, which will show up later, or were only sold in Japan. These Japan-only flavors were the first Mountain Dew kinds sold exclusively outside of the USA and were so incredibly rare barely anyone knew of or talked about them, even in the country they were exclusively sold in. This stunt here marks the beginning of Mountain Dew's incredibly bizarre marketing tactics, which we will see more of much later on. After this, Mountain Dew gave up on adding new additions to its line in favor of a failed attempt to branch off into the UK and changing its logo into a more 90s look. After this, they go back into flavor creation and make a breakthrough in 2001. This new flavor will single-handedly end the Monolithic period and bring about a new level of franchise branching and expansion no other soda has ever achieved. This is Code Red, in the beginning of the Revolutionary period. The Revolutionary period is the second oldest period of Mountain Dew history and is defined by the remarkable amount of growth, promotions, and flavors released during this period, which began with the release of Mountain Dew Code Red back in 2001. Mountain Dew Code Red was something else, man. I remember when I was a kid, I used to drink that stuff religiously. Code Red was the first truly successful and long-lasting Mountain Dew flavor, and the first flavor variant to be accessible across the entire United States. This unprecedented success was the catalyst for Pepsi to begin releasing other flavors of Mountain Dew, with Diet Gatorade being introduced in 2002, Livewire being released only in the summer for 2 years before being added as a permanent addition, the near mythical Baja Blast being released in Taco Bell, Pitch Black being added only for the Halloween season, several Slurpee flavors that really don't matter being released, and Mountain Dew Game Fuel being released to coincide with the release of Halo 3. All between the year 2001 and 2007. More flavors were released in between 2001 and 2007 than between 1940 to the year 2000. This is the Cambrian explosion of Mountain Dew. And it only gets more lively with the beginning of the first Democracy in 2007. This event is what began Mountain Dew's interaction with its fanbase, something no other dang it. This event is what began Mountain Dew's interaction with its fanbase, which led to a dedicated fan culture no other soda brand really has. Democracy 1 started out as a role-playing game involving selecting attributes to a new Mountain Dew flavor. The logo, name, taste, and everything else was decided by fans. In the beginning of 2008, Democracy began its second phase with 3 fan-made flavors being revealed: Revolution, Supernova, and Voltage. These flavors hit the shelves in the summer of that year, with a voting campaign to decide which flavor became a permanent addition. Voltage won and was added in December of 2008, while the other 2 flavors are banished to the infinite glacier of oblivion to die horribly in the hellish grasp of obscurity. In 2009, the modern-day abbreviated logo was made during a major rebranding of all Pepsi products, and the second and final Democracy began. This Democracy had some changes to it, with 7 flavors being sent to select individuals to decide which 3 flavors would compete against each other, with Distortion, Typhoon, and Whiteout being chosen. In the end, Whiteout won with 44% of the votes, just barely more than Typhoon with 40%. Sure hope that wasn't in vain. Right? Several lesser crowdsourcing events happened as well, with Fandumonium deciding a new diet-exclusive flavor, Apol happening to decide the design of a malt flavor, and Dub the Dew. During Dub the Dew, people on the internet could decide the name for a new green apple flavor at Pizza Villa restaurants. That is, until I get taken over by 4chan. Bet you weren't expecting to see these guys in your Mountain Dew video, eh? And the names they came up with that filled the top 10 were... Brace yourselves for this, I do not condone what these people did. This is why we can't have nice things. After that disastrous pit of abject misery happened, Baja Blast started getting sold in stores during the summer season starting with 2014. Citrus Cherry became a permanent flavor. Remember this. And then in 2016, Baja Blast didn't come during the summer for a reason. Something horrible happened, a nightmarish event that brought upon the darkest era of Mountain Dew, ushering in the degradation period, the 2016 Decision. The degradation period is the third and shortest period in Mountain Dew history, characterized by a lowered amount of activity and a catastrophe people are still bitter about to this day. And this period began with the 2016 Decision. The Decision replaced the standard routine of Baja Blast being released during the summer, with Pitch Black being released alongside of it, with a poll on the internet deciding which flavor gets to become permanent year-round. 2 near mythical flavors competing to escape their seasonal confines in the most heated event in Dew history. The stakes couldn't be higher, and after a summer of suspense, the votes were almost 50-50 between Baja Blast and Pitch Black, with Pitch Black rising from the dew-covered battlefield victorious. You could be drinking bottled Baja Blasts whenever you want year-round if it wasn't for Pitch Black winning. Just imagine drinking a tall glass of Baja Blast in the middle of winter, in the middle of February, in the middle of April, whenever you want. That is the reality that was taken away from you by Pitch Black. The reality that was stolen from you because a little Birdie told me that the decision was rigged. Take this with a grain of salt, but I do have proof. Baja Blast is pretty much Taco Bell's Mountain Dew flavor, and there's no way Taco Bell would ever let their flavor be lost to the supermarkets. And the whole decision was probably just a way to use Baja Blast's fame to promote Pitch Black for sales. After this, the growth of Mountain Dew started to slow down. Dew SA was released for a limited time in 2017. I actually tried it as a kid. It tasted like what you'd think light purple would taste like, if that makes any sense. Baja Blast wasn't released for the summer of 2017 until public backlash on Twitter brought it back. During 2017 and 2018, 3 exclusive flavors, being Goji Citrus Strawberry, Berry Burst, and Berry Monsoon, and a couple of less important Christmas flavors were released as a calm before the storm before the worst came to pass in early 2019. This is the catastrophe. The cataclysm I mentioned earlier. This was the Mountain Dew equivalent to the Cretaceous mass extinction event. Countless flavors that were underperforming were Thanos snapped out of existence, their damned souls clinging to the realm of the living as they are sporadically produced along the Midwest by independent Pepsi bottlers. Whiteout was vanquished, erasing the efforts of the second Democracy from history. Citrus Cherry was destroyed. Not many people really cared about that, but still. And worst of all, Pitch Black was slaughtered like a wild animal. Vanished, destroyed, obliterated. Everything we've been through, the second Democracy, the decision, all for nothing. The dream we had of a bottled Baja Blast on a frosty autumn morning that was torn out of our heads and stomped on was in vain. Pitch Black's death was completely unfounded, too. People loved it. It wasn't that they weren't buying it. Pepsi just didn't have enough stock. Pitch Black died in vain, and they didn't even tell people. They just ended almost all production without any announcement. This is the vilest act I have ever seen committed by a soda company. Except for that time Coca-Cola hired a Colombian death squad, but you get the point! After this tragedy, the Renaissance period began, but no amount of rebirth can heal the wounds that this franchise has sustained. Some scars never heal. Never heal. The Renaissance period is the final documented period in Mountain Dew history, starting in 2019, shortly after the climax of the degradation period and continuing to the release of this video and most likely beyond. This period is characterized by the regaining of momentum and releasing of new flavors, rebuilding what was lost in the degradation period. It didn't start out as this massive breakthrough, however. Mountain Dew's recovery was slow. The Renaissance period began with the release of Sweet Lightning, a peach-flavored exclusive variant only sold at KFC in 2019. You'll see a lot more exclusive flavors here than any other period, as Cyclone was added only in Speedway gas stations 2 months later. Liberty Brew, the American-themed flavor, was released during May instead of July for some sick reason. And during the Halloween season of that year, the Voodoo series of flavors begins with Voodoo 2019, a candy corn-flavored soda whose flavor is never revealed until Halloween night of its year. This tradition is planned to be followed with new flavors following in its footsteps until at least 2023. Maui Burst was released exclusively to Dollar General. Okay. This is the point where Mountain Dew starts getting a lot more experimental with how and where they release new flavors. All the exclusives made some sort of sense up until now with them being released at popular gas stations and fast food restaurants, but at Dollar General? No one goes to Dollar General to get drinks or food. If I see a bottle of Mountain Dew exclusive to a Dollar General of all places, I'm not gonna drink that. It'll probably taste how the old musty carpet in the back room smells. I'm not gonna drink that, that'll give me an ulcer. And after Mountain Dew Zero Sugar replaced died in the beginning of 2020, we have the exclusive flavor Lightning. Oh, God. Frostbite is added exclusively at Walmart stores. Atomic Blue is released only in Come and Go gas stations and later to Sheetz. Southern Shock is released as an exclusive flavor at Bojangles. Mountain Dew Spark, my beloved, was released exclusively at Speedway gas stations, though it would soon become available in stores everywhere. And Berry Twister is released only at Circle K of all places. Why Circle K, I don't know. After that happened, caffeine-free Diet Mountain Dew, which is the most convoluted soda name I have ever heard, was discontinued in the late September of 2020. The only way you can get it now is on the internet, and the prices for it are at least over $20. If you pay that much for a soda, Darwin is coming for you! And after exclusive flavor after exclusive flavor, we finally get a non-exclusive permanent addition to the lineup. Major Melon. This is when the Renaissance period truly begins. A line of Mountain Dew energy drinks with 6 new flavors in total called Mountain Dew Rise is released in the March of that year. Now, in the summer of 2021, Mountain Dew created a flavor called Vibe. This flavor is regarded by the majority of the Mountain Dew community to be one of the best Mountain Dew flavors out there. So what do you think PepsiCo did with this? Do you think they sold it in supermarkets, got loads of sales? No, they made it an exclusive to Which Wich. They fumbled the bag so hard on this one, they could have made so much money, but they made it an exclusive to a sandwich shop that only exists in Texas, the Midwestern United States, and like 4 places outside of that. Mountain Dew has the most bizarre marketing strategies known to man, and this is proof. And to back up my point even further, they had the sick, twisted idea to make a cake flavor of the citrus soda in the exact same summer. You could only get it as a prize from a contest, but then the demand for it was somehow so great, they started selling it online and it sold out. If you bought that cake flavor, I'm going to crawl right out of the street! The same summer, a major event called the 100 Days of Baja started, with Baja Blast along with Baja Flash and Baja Punch being released for the summer. Baja Blast is going to be carrying the soda from now on, just letting y'all know. Hard Mountain Dew was released in the August of that year, which is just normal Mountain Dew with alcohol in it, which really isn't that surprising with how Mountain Dew is made to be mixed with moonshine. Dark Berry Bash was released as an exclusive to Applebee's. You already know my opinions on this. After that, a terrible power was witnessed on the Mountain Dew online store that will torment the nations of the earth in due time. Thrashed Apple and Uproar were released as exclusives in Kroger's and Food Lions respectively, which compared to the other exclusives was pretty reasonable. And you guys remember that Mountain Dew Rise stuff I talked about earlier? Yeah, the energy drink? Well, in November 2021, Pepsi was sued by a coffee company called Rise Brewing over it, so they had to change the name to Mountain Dew Energy, which is a title so generic it gives me spinal cord inflammation. And then for the finale of that year, they released a gingerbread flavor for the Christmas season. These guys are just full of ideas, aren't they? Fast forward a couple of months into March of 2022, Speedway gas stations took their exclusive flavor Cyclone and gentrified it into oblivion with Major Melon, leading to Cyclone's discontinuation in that year. In the same month, Mountain Dew Legend was released only at Buffalo Wild Wings. I almost ordered it one time, but comfort is the killer of men, so I went with a Dr. Pepper instead so I didn't look like a tool. And then, the terrible power I mentioned earlier finally rears its head, truly free of the shackles of the internet. Mountain Dew Flamin' Hot. These psychopaths at Pepsi made a spicy Mountain Dew flavor. They couldn't even sell all of it. They started giving out 12 packs for $1. It sucked that much. After they got that out of their system, they released an actually good flavor named Purple Thunder. Issue is, they released it only at Circle K. And then after that, Citrus Cherry, fatally wounded from the injuries it sustained during the Age of Degradation, finally gave its last breath on May 25th, 2022, as the last producer of it, named Whizpack, discontinued it. And after this honestly pathetic demise, the last major event to happen in recorded Mountain Dew history happened in the summer of 2022, the Lost Treasures of Baja Island. This promotion saw Baja Blast along with 2 other flavors, Baja Gold and Baja Mango Gem, being released during the summer with special codes on their bottles that gave the consumer a chance to win a mystery flavor called Baja Deep Dive. This flavor was only able to be obtained from this contest. There's no other way to get it. As for what it tastes like, food reviewers who got the soda early from Mountain Dew for advertising purposes tend to speculate that it is a mixture of every other soda from this event. And other than 2022's Voodoo, which I tried, it sucked. Fruit Quick, which I also tried, it's actually pretty good, and a candy cane flavor which won't be released until the winter of 2023. That's it. We've reached the modern day and there is no more frontiers to explore. Wait, am I forgetting something? That's right, your eyes do not deceive you. Pitch Black has been re-released in the beginning of 2023. Our fallen hero's reanimated corpse has crawled out of his grave and onto store shelves once more. This is the current end of the Mountain Dew lore, and it is glorious. In conclusion, Mountain Dew was a soda created by 2 brothers in the 1940s before getting picked up by the Pepsi Company and being risen to heights its creators would only dream of, reaching its zenith with the release of Code Red and countless other spin-offs afterwards, before a brief recession and the recovery afterwards that is happening to this very day. And as a final message to you, dear viewer, I have spent months researching and preparing to show you Mountain Dew history today. Now go forth and create your own history tomorrow. Goodbye, my friend. Goodbye.